You're live. Hi, good evening. I want to welcome everybody. My name is Janine Silberberg. I'm the college counselor from J.P. Stevens High School in Edison, New Jersey, and I'm so proud to be here tonight representing NJACAC at their virtual college exploration fair. Tonight, you will have the ability to hear a presentation titled Discover Canada. So hopefully everybody will walk away with some great information. To ask questions, use the Q&A button. You can type in your questions to the presenters. Your camera and microphone are off and you are muted as well. So if you're going to, you should be able to see and hear our panelists, but not communicate with them through your camera or your microphone, so type in those questions. I encourage everybody to sign up for more sessions. We have some amazing things available for you later this week and into next week. You can check out the schedule at njacac.org/virtual fair. And please know that all these sessions are being recorded and will be available to you also at the njacac.org/virtual fair link. And now I want to turn our presentation over to our presenters.
Thank you, Janine.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jen, and I'm the Senior Manager of Recruitment for actually our Canadian high school, US high school, and overseas high schools. So pleasure to be with you, and I've spent a lot of time in Jersey. We were just reminiscing about some fun diners and driving activities that take place in the state. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. Wish we could be there in person, but hopefully you'll enjoy this session.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Weber. I'm a regional representative for the University of British Columbia. I'm actually based in New York City, so pretty close to you guys. And yeah, I hope you find today helpful.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Calla, Recruitment Officer at the University of Toronto. I specifically recruit in the tri-state area, and I've been to many of the schools in New Jersey, and I'm happy to be sharing some information with you today. So for today, our agenda is as follows. We will provide you with sort of an overview of the quality of education across Canada. We'll talk about the academic offerings that are available to institutions across the country. We'll also go over the student experience as well as the value for money. And then we will conclude with some information on admissions and the application process.
I'm going to start it off just to talk a little bit about the sort of education system in Canada and maybe a little bit on how it differs from the US. And there's a lot of reasons why students are choosing Canada to study. And of course, programs and that academic experience would be one of them. And overall, when you look at our country, even though we are a big country, we're relatively small in terms of size of number of universities. So when you're doing your research about Canadian institutions, you're going to notice that the numbers are quite different than the US. So right now, we have about 96 publicly funded universities. And that's a big distinguishing sort of factor that you'll see in Canada, is that the majority of our universities are public, meaning that we do receive a lot of funding from our different provinces, and as well as a lot of federal support. So there's a lot of emphasis put on that quality of education as we are reporting to these ministries, and we have a lot of requirements, for example, to meet sort of certain accreditation status. So if you're looking at our engineering degrees or our science degrees or our liberal arts degrees, you're going to see that the fundamental aspect of all of these program options is this strong focus on academics and these types of requirements. Based on this map you see here, you're just going to see that there's a lot of little points right along the US border. So when you're also looking at Canada, also think kind of close to home. A lot of people will think that we're all hiding up in the north somewhere. And yes, we do have some northern universities and locations, but really a lot of our schools are located within about an hour to 2 hours of the US border. So hopefully, again, just for geographic perspective, you're kind of looking at something close to home. On my side, I'm based in Montreal, so we're close to sort of Plattsburgh and the New York-Vermont border. Maria with U of T is kind of close to the Detroit border coming through. And then over on the West Coast near Seattle, you have Vancouver. So if you're kind of looking at those regions in the US, you'll see sort of similar geography and such in Canada as well. And of course, once you've finished studying at McGill, super important to note too that those degrees are extremely portable. We represent 3 relatively large institutions across our country that are considered research funded or sort of research comprehensive universities. So we have a lot of undergraduate work that you would do. So coming from high school into the undergraduate experience, going into graduate work, as well as then pursuing law and dentistry and potentially medicine. So there's lots of opportunities that you will do at university. And they're relatively larger, I would say. So in terms of our student bodies, a lot of our universities across Canada kind of start, 15, 20,000 students and go further up. And again, very portable. I think, again, recognizing that the quality of the education that we have, if you want to come back to the States and potentially pursue law school or go overseas and work, you will see that our degrees are recognized. And it's super important to have that aspect, as well as all the options for networking. You'll see there's a lot of alumni of our institutions around the world. So definitely an important piece, I think, when you're choosing our universities. And then, of course, even though we're close to the border with you, it is a different perspective. So I think as students, when you are looking for an international experience, but still want to stay relatively close to home, Canada is definitely different. Again, a lot of students are choosing Canada. And so in terms of international students right now, that number you see at the bottom in terms of for 2019, we have over 642,000 international students. So that will include our US students, but truly students from all over the world. So if you are looking to meet and connect with students, again, from lots and lots of countries, we have about 185 countries represented on our different campuses, you will get that very interesting international experience. And in terms of the program options that you're looking at, Maria a little bit later is going to talk about the actual kind of admissions process, but just to highlight some distinguishing factors, when you're looking at Canadian schools, it is important to have an idea of what type of programs you want to study. You're not coming in necessarily to any of our institutions sort of globally undeclared. You do want to start to narrow your choices down a little bit, and students will be applying into areas such as faculties or colleges. So maybe a faculty of arts, a faculty of science, but faculty of engineering. And you will see there's options to do Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Commerce. So a quite interesting variety there. And then the programs themselves, again, you will see that there is quite sort of rigorous requirements when you're in those programs. So if you are pursuing engineering, you're going to have a fundamental base with math, chemistry, and physics. So some really intensive programming there, but it will just prepare you for the coursework that you want to do, whether it's in mechanical engineering or international business or what have you. And what we like to say too is that when you are focusing on these programs, there's a lot of variety as well that you can do. So when you are an engineer, let's say you come into engineering in your first year, you can still branch out and take some liberal arts courses. So we have a lot of students looking at communication as well as international relations just to balance their academics out. You could be in sciences and want to pursue some economics courses and such. So hopefully you'll see that when you're looking at Canada, you sort of have sort of the idea of being a US student where you kind of come in undeclared and pick and choose your majors throughout your years. And then you might be looking at Europe, where you might come into a sort of one course stream and study that. We're kind of a balance of the two. So again, kind of narrowing your choices down initially by that faculty or program, we like to call it, but then adding on those electives and minors as you go. So hopefully you can do a lot of exploring. There's a lot of different program options that you can do amongst all of our institutions. And now I'm going to turn over to Chris, and he's going to talk a little bit about the campus life in all of our institutions.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So Canada is really known worldwide for being a welcoming, inclusive country. And in fact, we are #1 in the world for quality of life. So that means, Canada's a country that really respects all people. It really prioritizes health, mental health, and physical health, safety. It really prioritizes education as a whole. And it's no wonder Canada has such a good reputation worldwide. Now, what this means for our students is you can get all of the experiences you're looking for at American institutions, you can get those. We have very similar experiences, but just in this other context where you might find a lot of friendly faces who are very excited about you not being Canadian, perhaps. Now, one of the things that students often want to know about, can you get career experience? Can you get work experience, internships, something like that? Now, all international students have the right to work in Canada. On your study permit, you can work 20 hours a week, part-time during the semesters, full-time, 40 hours per week during the summers. And this is great. It can help you sort of complement your income, just have a little bit extra pocket money. But what we're really big fans of is giving you hands-on experience as part of your degree, whether that's research at the undergraduate level. Canada has a lot of research institutions. We really like getting students that hands-on experience, but also internships and co-op. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with co-op, that's a way of doing work experience where you're alternating a semester of work with a semester of study. So you don't have to juggle too much at one time. It's not essays and exams and running to class while also working. It's one or the other. Now, usually when you're on a co-op semester, you're not really paying tuition or you're paying a really low fee, but you're making money because co-op jobs are paid, they're relevant to what you're studying, they're mentored by someone in the field. This is a really great opportunity to get to know what jobs are out there, get to know connections who might want to hire you afterwards. And that becomes really relevant when you consider that international students who graduate from a Canadian university get a 3-year work permit where you can stay in the country, use those connections you've made, really start your careers before moving back to the US or moving anywhere else in the world for that matter. This work permit is super flexible too. You don't have to have a job offer by the time you graduate. You don't have to work in the field that you studied. You can change jobs. Everything's allowed. We're very welcoming. All right, now about campus life specifically. We have really great campuses. They're safe. There's all this stuff going on. Like I said, you're thinking about whether you can get these experiences that you'd find at American schools. And yes, for sure. You will find residence, you'll find housing. Often schools will have a first-year housing guarantee, so you can stay on campus. We have so many student-run clubs where you can explore all of your interests. Now, Jen mentioned that Canadian campuses tend to be 15, 20,000 plus. These student-run clubs are ways to make these larger experiences feel smaller because you're making connections with people based on similar interests. Sports is also a thing for us. Now, you may not find the level of passion and intensity that you might find at, an Alabama football game, but we do have a lot of varsity sports. We do have intramural sports. So all that's part of the experience as well. And then we have the opportunities for growth and leadership. Now, student support's a big one too. With larger universities, we always make sure we have the departments and the offices that look after students, make sure you have your academic advising taken care of. Student, might have a pride office, offices that look after students who have visible or invisible disabilities. So really, all of the opportunities you want to thrive at university, you can find in Canada as well. It's not leaving the American system behind. You'll have a lot of that. Even frats, we have Greek life too. Isn't that exciting? All right, I'm gonna stop talking about this and let's move on to the value for money that you can find at Canadian universities. Because of that high investment that the federal and provincial governments put in our education, our higher education, not only do you get very high quality, you also get lower costs. Now, if there are any Canadian citizens here, you'll know that your costs are super low. Maybe you're only here because your parents are Canadian and they said, you're going to college in Canada, even if you didn't know that. So the average cost, now these numbers are a couple years old, so there may be little changes, but the average cost for 1 year of university in Canada from 2018 is $20,000 US for international tuition. Then you add on to that $15,000 for cost of living, and you end up with $35,000 total. Now, I will say the 3 universities represented here are probably the most expensive schools in Canada, and we're all going to be above this $35,000 number. So you'll see the tuition, it varies depending on the school you're going to and the program within that school. You can get tuition as low as $9,500 up to about $47,000. So there's a big range. Now, the way this breaks down is about 50% of Canadian schools are in the $15,000 to $20,000 range tuition. About 30% are in that $20,000 to $25,000 range. Then an extra 20% of us, the three of us here, are above that. Now, an important point to keep in mind is that if you're a Canadian citizen, your tuition is going to be a lot lower. And if you are a French passport holder in the province of Quebec, that will be lower as well. And if you're an American citizen, you can use your FAFSA, your federal student loans. You can apply those to Canadian universities. You can't apply grants. You can't apply any state money, but federal loans, yeah, you can do that. And because this is a big investment and it's something you want to make sure that you and your family have a plan for, we do also tend to have awards and scholarships. Now, this is done very differently. Canada won't do a financial aid package the way American schools will do. So merit awards are generally available. These vary widely by universities. Some of them might be a one-time thing upon entrance, a few $1,000s, well done. Others might be a substantial amount every year, could be a recurring award. This really depends. You should look into each individual universities. And need-based awards, they vary highly by institution. I know our institutions here have some availability. And again, I'm not going to bore you with the details of them now, but you have questions, we're very happy to answer those. So yeah, there you go. Canada, not only good value for money, but we're also willing to throw in a little extra to say, congratulations, you're a good student. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Maria now to talk to us about admissions.
Great, thank you. So we'll go over some of the admission requirements and our admissions timeline. And so if we can move to, great. So in terms of our admissions requirements, it is quite different from how American institutions consider students that are applying. For the most part, we are mainly looking at a student's academic background or their academic performance. Oftentimes we are placing priority on junior and senior year. Now, the GPA requirements do vary quite broadly, again, by institution, but many of us, especially the three of us, are looking for very strong academic students with strong GPAs or averages. Now, some programs may also require a supplementary application form. That could be in the form of a personal profile, a short video interview, a portfolio, a couple of short answer questions. We might be looking to learn a little bit about yourself, about your leadership background, and perhaps why you want to study these programs at our institutions. And letters of recommendations, while this is a very pivotal part of the American application process, it isn't so much across Canada. So most of our institutions, if not all, will not require a letter of recommendation. And some institutions, such as the University of Toronto, we actually don't use them at all. So while we do have students submitting their letters of recommendations, they don't actually play a role in the admissions consideration. In general, here is sort of the admissions timeline. So we have our students that tend to apply beginning September until about March. So for many of us, our applications are actually open. For some institutions, the applications haven't opened quite yet. And then in between November and April, that's when our students will submit their documents. So that might include your transcripts. You might be asked to self-report some grades. You might be asked to submit test scores, proof of English proficiency, and other things like auditions, portfolios, or personal statements. And then between February and June, this is when our evaluations are done and our decisions are released. Now, most institutions do conduct their admissions on a rolling basis. So essentially, the earlier you apply, the earlier you can hear back. And so we strongly encourage all of our applicants to apply early. And many of us even have early consideration deadlines as well. That might be in November. And the reason why we encourage students to apply early is simply so that we can respond to you earlier as well. In case something is missing from your application, you're allowing us more time to let you know so that you have enough time to go in and then update your application as well. Now, when it comes to Ontario universities, we have a bit of a different system within the province of Ontario. So there are 22 universities in the province, and all of our institutions require that if an applicant is applying to multiple Ontario universities, they must use the Ontario application. So that would be the Ontario 105 application. So let's say you are interested in U of T and then 2 other universities in Ontario. You must use the Ontario Universities Application Center for your undergraduate application. If you're not applying to multiple universities in Ontario, you can apply directly through each institution's website. And for my fellow colleagues here, for McGill and UBC, if you're interested in those institutions, you will be applying directly to through their website. So for the most part, institutions across Canada apply directly through their website. If you're applying to Ontario universities, use the Ontario Universities Application Center. Now, in terms of the specific requirements, if you are following the traditional American high school curriculum, what we generally look for across the board is English being completed up to towards your senior level, so all 4 years of English. We generally are looking for math to be completed up to your junior level. Some programs might require that you have it in your senior level as well. And normally we are also looking at your test scores, so your SAT or your ACT, but this year most of our institutions have gone test optional. So this is what, if you are interested in universities that are not here today, you do want to check with them to see what their test optional policies are. And for us, if you haven't had the opportunity to take the test due to COVID, or if you did take the test and you simply are not happy with your score, you are not going to be penalized for not having submitted your SAT or ACT results. Now, for most of us, we do have faculty or program specific requirements as well. So what that might look like are certain prerequisite subjects that you would have to complete, usually at the senior level, in order to be qualified for certain programs. So to give you an example, if you're applying to, say, our life sciences or health sciences program, we're normally looking very closely at your math mark, maybe biology, chemistry, and English, of course. So we are looking for proficiency in these prerequisite subjects. So we will look very, very closely at those grades. And certain courses are eligible for transfer credits. So if you've taken APs and you've taken the test, we are looking for grades of 4 or 5 on the AP exams in order for you to be eligible for transfer credits. Again, that varies by institution, but most institutions will award you credits that will go towards your program or your degree. And lastly, if we do have any students in here that are following the international baccalaureate programs, we do review you mainly on your predicted IB scores. These scores do vary, again, quite broadly by institution, so it's best to look at their website to see what their specific scores are. And for those students who are normally applying as an IB diploma student, we wouldn't look at your SAT or ACT scores for admission anyway, because we're looking at you as an IB diploma candidate. Again, prerequisites vary, but for most cases, we are looking for English, math, and science, either at the higher or standard level. But higher level courses will award you certain transfer credits here as well. All right, so I'll pass it on to Jen to provide some brief information about.
Excellent, thank you so much. And we'll just spend about 3 minutes each per institution just to give you some quick highlights, and then hopefully more questions will come in. So as mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, you do have that question and answer function at the bottom. You're all very familiar with Zoom, I'm sure. So feel free to type some questions in, and hopefully we'll get to a bunch of them. Very important to note, just as you're looking at the application process for our institutions, truly you're applying based on your academic background. So regardless, in terms of which state you're coming from, but also which school, what curriculum you're following, and not so much based on your citizenship. So it's important to look at our requirements based just on the academic piece, and really where citizenship will come into play is primarily with once the student has been admitted, and then we look at tuition assessments. So what Chris was referring to before, tuition varies quite a lot based on our institutions, but it varies as well based on your citizenship. So something to look into when you're looking at the application process. So just a quick overview of McGill. If you kind of go straight up, I think it's the 87, straight through, you hit Montreal about 45 minutes after the border. So our campus is located right downtown Montreal. We were established in 1821, so fall 2021. It's going to be our 200th birthday as an institution. So great time just to come for cake and some festivities, I hope. And I think what's unique about McGill is that we are an English institution, but we are in a French province. So a lot of students, particularly from the US, we have about 10% of our students that come from the US, are really attracted to the location because Montreal is very much like a European style city in terms of the design, the architecture, the culture, the feel, and of course that French influence makes it very different than the rest of the country. So for students that are looking for an English institution to study in English, but have that French vibe and have that European vibe, it is really one of the reasons I think students are choosing our campus. And you will see we are one of the larger institutions. So we have about 27,000 undergraduate students, but they are studying about 300 programs. So you're going to see a lot of options in the liberal arts, engineering, management, science, but also music. We have a very interesting double degree in arts and science. So for those students that really want to study both, they can do that. And we also have a lot of focus on sustainability and environmental science type programs. So I encourage you to think about that. What you'll notice about Montreal is that we have 4 actually major large universities downtown Montreal. And when you add up the college and university students together, we're about 250,000 students. So you'll see the impact on the city is quite dramatic. It's very young, it's very vibrant, but it's also very affordable. It's one of the most affordable cities in our country. We are doing a lot over this fall to hopefully keep you engaged. So if you want to connect with us further as we go through our application process, you will see that for us, it really will be based on your grades. So your GPA starting in sophomore year or grade 10 up to your mid-year grade 12. We don't do anything early. There's no early decision or early action. So our application deadline will be January 15th of your senior year. And we have a ton of time where you can log in with us on Wednesdays to chat live with us, to ask some questions about your application. We're also doing application sessions over October, November. And because our campus as well is virtual, which is why I'm showing you my lovely background, just for fun, you can chat live with the tour guides. We have some virtual campus tours taking place as well. All of this information will be under our undergraduate admissions website, so easy to find, hopefully. So that's a little bit about McGill, and over to U of T.
Actually, over to UBC.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were going geographically. My apologies, Chris.
It's all right. Yeah, so UBC, it's one of the bigger institutions as well. Now, I could give you a bunch of statistics, but really I only want to stick to 2 here. The 2 that I think mean the most to me about UBC, which is we're the #1 university in the world for taking urgent action to combat climate change. I like that number a lot because it tells you 2 things. It tells you that we are obsessed with sustainability, but it also tells you that we are taking action. We're not just teaching from a distance, we're getting our students involved in that. And we are the most international university in North America. That means we have over 18,000 international undergrads from about 166 different countries. So multicultural diversity and sustainability, those 2 things are just part of our DNA. Now for UBC specifically, we actually have 2 campuses. So it's 1 university, it's the same degree, pretty much the same academic areas, but very different experiences. So the campus you see at the top there is in the Okanagan Valley. So that's a mid-sized campus of about 9,500 undergraduate students in a city of about 200,000 people. And then the photo below that is our Vancouver campus. Vancouver's a city of 2.5 million people, and that campus has 45,000 undergrads. So very different experiences. Even the weather is different. We have Canada weather up top and Seattle weather at the bottom. So, you know, you get a little mix. Now, the other thing that I think is really important to highlight about UBC is we do have hundreds of active learning opportunities. So that is research at the undergraduate level, that is co-op, you know, work experience, all the things I mentioned, housing, sports, clubs. So we're big fans of that. Now here, I think if you just go to that website, the word you.ubc.ca, that's where you'll find everything about undergraduate studies at UBC, including online events, online campus tours, and all of that fun stuff. You also have my email address there if you want to reach out, ask me a question. But more importantly, you're the youth. You guys like social, right? I only know Facebook and Instagram, but you're all about the TikTok. So whatever you're looking for, we got you covered. So definitely many ways to engage with UBC online.
Great. And so just to provide some facts about the University of Toronto, well, we were established in 1827 and we're actually older than the city of Toronto. So the university was, heavily established and the city really grew around the university. So what's nice is that the campus environment has very traditional Victorian Gothic look and feel to it, but it's combined with the modern metropolitan environment surrounded by this city. Now, we are Canada's flagship research institution, and what that means is that we are very, very large producers of research. We're heavily invested in research production, and we produce almost the second largest research publications among North American universities, right after Harvard. So our students at the undergraduate level actually have opportunities to partake in these research opportunities. If they have ideas of their own coming from high school that they'd like to pursue in university, they can potentially have their research ideas funded as well. Now, we are Canada's largest university. And so what that means for our students is that they have a lot of choices. So first of all, we have about 71,000 undergraduate students, over 800 different programs. And one of the first choices that our students can make is where they would like to study, because we are one university with 3 very distinct campuses. So each of our 3 campuses are located about an hour from one another, and they all offer their own sort of unique learning experiences as well as academic programs, but they all offer the same high quality education. And all of our students end up with a University of Toronto degree. And finally, we are located in one of the most diverse cities in the world as well, where over half of our population was born outside of Canada and speaks a language outside of English. And so I think that's one of the things that really draw our students to not just the university, but also Toronto as well, is that having that welcoming environment and being able to really contribute to a global society on and off campus. And so if you're looking to connect with us, there are many different ways to do that. But what I would highlight is our future.utoronto.ca website, which has all of the information about the university. If you're looking for more specific ways to connect with us, we do have daily webinars, student chats, and one-on-one recruitment meetings with a recruitment officer, and that you'll find on the discover.utoronto.ca. If you haven't had a chance to visit us, we do have a virtual tour online. It's really immersive and shows you a lot of detail about the 3 campuses, so I would highly recommend that. And here's my contact information. Should you have any questions going forward, I'd be happy to work with you in the future.
All right, so
yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought we'd open it up.
Go ahead, Chris.
I do see some questions here. Now, there are some questions that are specific to an institution, but I think some of these answers might apply more broadly. So the one I see here is specifically, there's a question about UBC. Does UBC accept the Common App? And I'll answer for all of Canada. I think about 6 Canadian universities are on the Common App. Everyone else, like Maria said, Ontario, you have your own thing going on. Everyone else individually per university. Now, UBC is one of a few schools in Canada, not many, that actually asks all students to answer some questions about themselves. So all applicants will do this, and it's called a personal profile. But Common App, not really. Yep. Anyone else want to take a question?
So we have a question here. It says, hi, my name is Shrishti. I currently live in Canada. I went to high school in the States until first semester of my junior year, and now I'm a senior at a Canadian high school. I'm not a permanent resident. Would I still be applying as an international student, or is there a different process? Well, if you're currently studying at a Canadian high school, I mean, depending on the province you didn't mention, but for example, if you're applying from Ontario, our high school students receive a PIN, which they then use to apply. But Shrishti, if you want to clarify what province you're applying for, it might vary provincially. Unless Chris or Jen, you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think I would just highlight exactly what you said, Maria, and just mention that in most cases, a student is applying based on their curriculum. So if you live in Ontario, so we would be looking primarily at your grade 12 level courses that you've done in Ontario. So your 4Us and 4Ms and such. And so you're applying to your program, and then we would review you based on your academic performance. Of course, the difference will be once you are admitted and you decide to attend a Canadian university, if you don't have status in Canada, that you are not a permanent resident, you don't have citizenship, then that's when you would be assessed then at the international tuition rate. So it's kind of a combo. You're applying basically as a Canadian high school student or an Ontario high school student based on your academics, but then it's the tuition piece that will flip over to the international one, if that makes sense.
Right, and Srishti, you mentioned you live in Ontario. So as I mentioned, Ontario high school students will receive a PIN from their guidance department, and that PIN is what they use to log on to the Ontario University's application center. I apologize if you hear my dog, she's hungry, but yeah, you'll get your PIN from your counselor, and then you'll log on to the OUAC and submit your applications there if you're applying to Ontario universities. Otherwise, you can apply directly through each institution's website across Canada.
And I see a question here that says, asking if all of the schools here are test optional. I know that it will vary across the country. U of T and McGill, I know, are test optional this year. UBC has this great statement online that says we are currently reviewing. So we're officially not there yet. I hope that we will be test optional in the next week or so. But my advice to all students is, even if we say we're not test optional, don't take a test unless you're 100% confident in it. If you have even 1% doubt in your mind, don't do it. I don't think it's worth the risk to your health and the health and safety of your entire community. We can work around it. We will be flexible. And I think that's how most schools are doing it these days.
Yes, and as Chris mentioned, the University of Toronto is also test optional. So if you haven't taken the test, or if you simply don't want to, you will not be penalized for not submitting your test scores. We will look at your grade point average and focus primarily on that.
All right, there's another question that was, some of these questions have already been answered typed, but I don't know if everyone can see that, so I'm just putting it out there. There's a question about health insurance. How does it work? Do the schools or does Canada offer health insurance? And I think generally, if you're going to live in a Canadian province for more than 3 months or so, you have to have health insurance. We like that in Canada, but it's all public. It's very affordable. When I was a student, I was an international student in Canada. I broke my ankle playing soccer, and I went to the university hospital, and they patched me up. And I walked out and I was like, where do I pay? And they're like, you don't. It's public. And that was very exciting. Yeah, so generally you need to have health insurance. For the first few months, you may have to get an international program, but your university will definitely guide you through that process. All right. Anyone else?
Let's see, do we want to? Yes, we had a great question about class sizes, which Jen has already answered, but just to let everybody know, class sizes do vary quite broadly institution to institution. So, you could be in a class with maybe 20, 30 students in the first year, but at a large institution such as U of T, it could also be anywhere between 200 to 1,200 students in a lecture. But we always try to accommodate students in a more intimate setting by offering smaller sections of a tutorial where your teaching assistant kind of goes over the main concept covered during the lecture, as well as practicals, which is a more hands-on approach. And due to safety and hazard reasons, you can't have more than usually 16 to 20 students in those practical sessions either. So there are ways for you to find classes that are much smaller, but generally first year courses, you can expect them to be a little bit larger because oftentimes students are not in a program in the first year. They're still exploring, they're covering all of their bases, and then have the opportunity to choose their classes or programs rather at the end of first year. But every year, as you get into your upper years, your class sizes will get progressively smaller as well.
Yeah, from my personal experience, in my first year, I had some lectures with a few hundred students. But in my fourth year, and it also depends on what you're studying. I was a double major in psychology and Spanish. So in my fourth year psychology classes, I may have maybe had 35, 50, maybe a few more people. In my Spanish classes, I maybe had 10. So it also really depends on what you're studying, but definitely lectures at the beginning with breakout groups, and then getting smaller as you go on. Also, a lot of universities have open office hours. So professors are there to talk to you one-on-one if you want it.
Perfect. And just in case you are concerned about class sizes, again, we're representing some of the larger institutions in Canada, but you will find some of those smaller liberal arts style colleges as well. So Bishop's University in Quebec, you have St. Thomas University in the Atlantic side. So you can do your research, and there are some smaller options for you. Great question about medical school. So similar to the States, if you are looking to apply to medical school in Canada, you do have to have an undergraduate degree first before pursuing medicine, just as you would in the States. Of course, some amazing biological science and biotech programs that you can do, physiology, anatomy, all of these amazing programs, but similar to where you are now. Think of that as a second option once you've done your undergrad.
All right. Are international students able to live in off-campus housing? Yeah, I'm not aware of schools requiring you to live on campus like sometimes happens in the US. So I think you always have the freedom to live on campus or off campus, up to you.
Yes, and we do offer nursing programs in Canada, but oftentimes our nursing programs do require at least 2 years of university preparation. So it's not a direct entry program from high school. You do have to have at least 2 years of university in order to then be eligible for these nursing programs. That's specific to Ontario. If Jen or Chris may want to touch on that, if it varies across your provinces.
I can just mention that we do have nursing that's direct entry from high school to our Bachelor of Science in Nursing program. The one highlight, I guess I would say, is that because we are in the province of Quebec and our nursing students would be put in rotations in clinics and hospitals right from the beginning, the sort of requirement to speak French is pretty high. So you want to be hopefully open to learning the language a bit to pursue nursing in Quebec. But very strong programs, and they are very portable. And we do have actually a lot of students that are trained in nursing programs in Canada that eventually make their way back to the States as well. So recognized solid degrees as well.
All right. Are dorms in Canadian colleges different from American ones at all?
Great question.
Sure, they can be. So I'll give you an example. At UBC, we have the 2 campuses. One of our campuses only has single rooms. You can't share, even if you want to. But on our Vancouver campus, we do have single rooms. We do have shared rooms. So it varies, but yeah, you'll have a similar experience. Maybe not, I've heard of schools in the US where you have like bunk beds with many people in the same room. I've not heard of that in Canada, but maybe.
Yeah, I think the big difference too is that in Canada, you might sense that or get that sense of independence a little bit earlier. Obviously, if you recognize in terms of legal age and how we treat our students, adults at 18 or 19, you have a little bit more flexibility. So a lot more of our students will live potentially off campus after 1 or 2 years of that residential experience, but dorms, but you'll think there's a lot of variety, whether you'll have a roommate or not, meal plan or not. So quite a bit of options, I would say. Quickly study abroad programs, yes. I mean, that's an option for all of our institutions across our country. So if you're looking for that semester or 2 abroad in another country, absolutely, you'll find that at every institution.
Marine biology. Chris, is UBC the only institution that offers marine biology?
UBC is literally on the ocean. If you walk a few steps west of campus, you're in the ocean. So yes, we do have marine biology. So you do it under a biology major. It's a specialization within, so you wouldn't find it on a list of majors, but it's definitely a thing we do.
Yes. And we have a question, are there any specific admission requirements for certain programs? For example, nursing often requires SAT scores, certain high school prerequisites. So yes, that's exactly it. There are specific admission requirements depending on the program that you're applying to. So for example, engineering could be very, very specific in the sciences and might have a higher GPA requirement as well as high test scores. But yes, it absolutely does vary by program as well as by institution. So you definitely want to have a look at each individual university's website and really look at their specific requirements based on the curriculum that you're currently following. And I think we finished just in time. So we want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We hope that you found this session extremely valuable and provided you insight, especially on our 3 institutions, but also across Canadian universities. And we hope to remain in touch with you throughout the application process, as well as after that. Chris and Jen, you want to say a word?
Yeah, thank you. That's 2 words. Yeah, thank you very much for your time. I know it's late. I know it's a weekday and you probably had something more exciting to do, but thank you for spending 45 minutes with us. And yeah, all our contact details are there, so please feel free to reach out.
And thank you as well. Maria, as we wrap up, there's one last question related to UAC. Maybe you want to check that out. But I think for us, when you're looking at Canadian schools, just want to reassure you that it is a bit of a lot later deadline. So don't be anxious right now of trying to get your applications in. Enjoy what you're doing at school right now. We know it's a little bit harder, especially if you're working virtually. So we get that. So no rush, just take your time, and priority again, stay healthy to you and your family and all your peers. So thanks again, and hope to see you on our campuses.
I want to thank all of our presenters and also all of you for participating tonight in the NJACAC Virtual College Exploration Fair. When you close this window, there will be a quick 4-question survey. Please also make sure to sign up for more sessions. You can check out the sessions at njacac.org/virtual-fair. All the sessions are being recorded and will be available at the same website. Thanks everyone for joining us and have a great night.